You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome back to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 253, and my name is Clark from 5cardguys.com and 5cardguys on Instagram and YouTube. Co-hosting with me as usual is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards. John's away again this week, but hopefully he'll be back on the pod soon. Okay, off the top, we talked about this on a previous podcast episode when Fanatics postponed its Orlando show that was supposed to be more focused on the collector experience. And they postponed it because of the hurricane damage in Florida at the time. And if you remember, on that episode, we discussed how it was understandable that they would postpone, but at the same time, Orlando wasn't hit as badly, and there were other trade shows, bigger trade shows, that were still carrying on. So that made us think whether Fanatics might have been wanting to press the reset button and start fresh in 2025 instead of just rushing, another big show this year, especially after FanFest NYC, where there are rumblings, I don't know if you heard, that they lost money holding that event. We'll get into that in a second, but recent news came out that Fanatics Fest Orlando is actually canceled now instead of just postponed, and they're putting all the attention on the second FanFest NYC this summer. And there are two rumors associated with FanFest NYC. We're just talking off air about it. But one is that they're looking to have it in June before the National in 2025 instead of in August after the National like it was this year. And the other rumor is that FanFest NYC might not actually happen at all. So yeah, there's kind of these two wild rumors out there. And to be fair, the second rumor, the cancellation rumor, is unsubstantiated. So take it with a major grain of salt. But in any case, going back to Fanatics Collect Orlando being canceled, your initial thoughts, Hyung, on that news, and do you think it's a cause for concern at all?
I think there's a lot of things at play here that you can't just say, the event being canceled concludes ABC. There could be many reasons why internally they decided to cancel it. They could have used, I guess, the weather as a way to kind of deflect. But what I'm kind of getting out of this is, one, after Fanatics Fest NYC, I believe it was pre-planned before they got any feedback from NYC. And I think, one, just looking at, New York City as the venue, I don't see how they could potentially be profitable in the Javits Center just because you're in prime New York. So
expensive.
Yeah. But I would assume other cities like Orlando would be a good destination. A lot more people would be willing to go to places like Orlando. There's stuff like, I could take my family to, Disney or whatever it is. And you could also do other stuff while in Orlando. So, as opposed to New York where hotels cost a fortune, having, access to, a car or travel within the city is not existent. Right. So I would think that a city like Orlando and different cities would be, I guess, a better ROI for them if it was about money. And I think it has to do with money as well because, well, obviously as a business, you never want to lose money at an event. There has to be something that pays for if you consider that an investment if you're losing money. But, I think one side of the equation where people saying, I told you so, Fanatics is doomed, they're going down. It's like Fanatics did $6 billion in sales in 2023 as a company. They were projected to do $8 billion this year, which I don't think they're going to hit because that's a massive growth. But they have multiple streams of revenue, and I don't think it's a doom and gloom, because at the end of the day, Topps and sports cards for them is still probably maybe 15% of their whole revenue stream.
Yeah.
So it's relatively small in the bigger picture. Just to give you an idea of how big Fanatics is with e-commerce, with the apparel division, and then their gaming and betting division, which I assume the most profitable out of all three of their revenue streams is collectibles and sports cards, because it's just a higher profit margin business. So I think it's about managing expenses and being smart with kind of like, okay, where do we see this going? They have other stuff like betting, for instance, sports. And we talk about like even their marketing and what they're doing on the marketing side and their access to players now. And from a sports betting side, from just a sports in general, I think they have so much pull in the industry that they're looking at it from bird's eye view and saying, okay, is this the smartest in our direction of where we want to go? Can we allocate funds differently? Can we do events? Is Fanatics Fest important? And I think it is important. It's just a matter of how they execute it to their overall vision, I would say, rather than it be a black and white doom and gloom. I think there's so many variables at play that we could only assume what's happening, but that's my take on it. I just see it as, you know, if you look at Fanatics' bottom line at the end of the day, you know, they might be low single digit net profit, right? So for me, that's still, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars at the end of the day, right? So it's just a matter of, okay, as a business, how can we be more profitable? How can we put the earnings before, you know, the interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization? How can we get that number up? And I think that's what they're doing as a business standpoint. How it looks internally, we have no clue.
Yeah. No, that's you made some really great points, and I like what you said about Fanatics. It seems like they're seeing it more from that bird's eye perspective, right? And you know, us in the hobby, we're very focused on just the one aspect of their business. So it's understandable for me to see others kind of presenting this doom and gloom picture and just questioning everything about Fanatics events just because of the recent news. I understand that, but I think it is a good reminder, as you just said, that Fanatics is just a huge business. And I think it is, if you look at it from that point of view, it feels like it's just a simple pivot. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they had all the intention of making Fanatics Collect Orlando a successful event, but the hurricanes didn't help, you know, and even though Orlando wasn't hit as badly, travel to Orlando could be tricky, you know, because of all the postponements and just, you know, the infrastructure and all that stuff. But, you know, when they did the math at the end of the day, they probably weren't making as much money as they would have liked, especially coming off the FanFest NYC event, right? And I think to your point about the feedback, I don't think that was probably a misstep by Fanatics. They probably should have maybe waited and then really planned the Orlando show, and then, you know, just kind of been a little bit more prepared that way. But I hope that they're learning from that mistake. And, you know, even from the vendors, I'm sure I've heard rumblings that the feedback that they gave, maybe there wasn't just enough time to incorporate some of that feedback, because it was just a few month turnaround from NYC to Orlando at the time before they postponed it, right?
Yeah, and to your point, I think the key thing is that feedback is so crucial, you know, to a company, and rightfully so. People should be questioning. I'm not saying you should question and say, like, because I guess you could see that we're pro Fanatics just in general. I'm not pro anything. Like I said, I'm looking at it from a outside in perspective, someone new to the marketplace, looking at what a big player like Fanatics, their resource, because you got to remember, it's the machine. So what did they build as a machine, and what can that machine do in this industry, in this hobby? So there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, a lot of failures, a lot of pivots, that's dependent on Fanatics, if how much they listen to the people, us, of what we're expecting. And then they look at it from more of a business standpoint, saying, what can we do to listen to these? Hopefully, that's their mindset, and then implicate it now into future events or whatever they decide to do.
Sure. And you're talking about the betting division of FanFest. I know they're dumping a whole lot of money in that, so I'm sure they're still building that up. I don't think that's profitable at all, right?
Yeah, I would say it's like break even, but they're building, right? They're
building. But I was just gonna make a side joke about, if I'm gonna bet on Fanatics Fest NYC taking place in 2025, I'm betting that's gonna happen. I think at least one more big one. I just got an email from FanFest saying, I don't know if you got one too, asking for us to fill out a survey on what we would like to see for FanFest 2025. So,
another thing to add to that, like just seeing how big Fanatics is, and then kind of like zooming into a specific sector of their business, like sports cards. So you have Topps, but then you're zooming in even more into specific events. Mm-hmm. So now you're relying on the individuals that kind of like are responsible for the development of these projects. Yep. So you don't know what they're capable of or what they're not capable of. Like, this was your first event, and you're relying on these internal people so much. So it's a matter of like, events aren't easy. It's to run a successful, profitable event of this nature.
Yeah. And
to do it where, I guess, it's not necessarily someone who did this before. This is all new to everyone, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of, using this as a framework of what needs to be the future version of Fanatics Fest. Because for me, as a collector, I would love for them to host a great event every year, at least one or two, because the experience I had at Fanatics Fest was great, right? So it's like, obviously there's room for improvements, and I have my list and I did those surveys to send back to genuinely give my feedback. I would say some sucked. Like, honestly, like hotels did suck in general. Like, the costs sucked. So it's like, this is the voices that we have to, if you don't like it, at least be a voice to give that feedback so that Fanatics could do something, right?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's for sure. And I think you kind of already said this, but one of the reasons why I'm kind of bullish in the next FanFest NYC happening is that, as a collector and as someone that who attended the first FanFest NYC, I had a great time. Like, overall, it was a great event put together, and like you said, there's room for improvement. But imagine we went and we didn't have a good time. Then I would be more alarmed, and more concerned whether it's going to happen or not. So my personal experience, and I think it's going to happen. I think what they're doing right now in soliciting feedback is a good thing, and we're not just like automatic pro Fanatics, but I think it's good to take a step back and kind of see, like you said, a bird's eye perspective on what's going on.
And I really believe in, like, Orlando would be a great event, because I feel like you could still attract the celebrities, right? Where it's not like a smaller city. You still could attract it, but it becomes way more affordable for individuals traveling, right? So even little stuff like hotels, car rentals, the ability to rent cars and be able to go do other stuff. Like, there's other value in that. So as much as I did like New York, it gave me a different perspective of New York, because I've been to New York City every year since I was born. But I believe there are opportunities in other cities that they need to really listen to, kind of like the consumer at the end of the day. Right? Yeah. Make it more of a, affordable way. Like, even for us traveling there, we had media passes, we had all these other stuff. It still cost a fortune. You know what I mean? So it was like a vacation, within 3 days. So that's the only feedback I'll give to other, I guess, places other than New York City.
And if it's going to be in New York City, the last thing I'll say before we move on is, in that survey, I said you need to have more exclusive products. So so we can flip it and then get some of our costs back for our trip.
Yes, that's the only way. See, guys like Paul Hickey, you know, that was his whole goal. It's like, how can I get to Fanatics Fest for free? Right?
Yes. Please pump out the exclusive content so we can flip it on eBay.
Yeah.
And that hopefully pays for our trip.
And you know what? I actually enjoyed that part of it. Because,
it's fun.
You know, whenever you see other events or other exclusive releases, you're like, you know what? Like, oh, I wish I could get my hands on that, but you have no way of doing it. But you're the one standing in line. You're like, you know what? I could make $350 by standing in line. And then I sell it on eBay, and then, you know, it starts cutting away on that expense. I guess the whole thing is you got to pay to play.
You gotta pay to play. And you know what? There's worse things than lining up in a Fan Fest event, because you know we were just talking the whole time with other collectors. It was a good time. All right, let's move on to hobby headlines. Now we got to talk about the Paul Skenes MLB debut patch 1/1 rookie autograph card that everyone seems to be talking about in the hobby, and it's mainly because the Pittsburgh Pirates organization put an incredible bounty offer on that card for anyone who pulls it. And let me read the bounty for you because it's extensive. You get 2 season tickets behind home plate for the next 30 years, a softball game for 30 of your friends at PNC Park, plus coaching from Pirates alumni. During spring training, you get a private tour of Pirate City and Lecom Park. That's how you say it, Lecom. I guess that's their spring training diamond. You get a meet and greet with Skenes. You get batting practice, and you get to warm up with the team. And it says other unique experiences at Pirate City. And on top of that, Skenes' girlfriend, Livvy Dunne, the gymnast, she added to the bounty by saying that you can watch a Pirates game with her in her suite as well. So first, Hyung, what do you think of that bounty? And then afterwards, I want to talk about how much does something like this push the hobby into the mainstream culture, if at all. So first, the bounty, your thoughts.
I think the bounty is awesome. I think, you know, I'm always a big believer in people value experience over money. And there's other people that value money over experience, right? Depending on how impactful that experience is. So for me, I wouldn't necessarily be like, wow, like I would have to be in Pittsburgh, live in Pittsburgh to collect that bounty. But someone that's in Pittsburgh, you'd be the coolest guy in the city.
No brainer.
Yeah, you'd be the coolest guy. But then I look at the dollar value of if I could, you know, leverage a bit of these, you know, offers that are on the table, maybe I could max the cash value of the potential of what this card is. And at that point is, would you take a cash out versus the 30-year commitment and experience, right? To do that. So for me, I love it both ways because it hits kind of both demographics wherever you sit on this equation. Because if you pulled it, let's be honest, if anybody pulled it, you're thinking, how much can I get on auction on this before anything? And then you're comparing that value to the experience, right? And like I said, if you're, let's just say Drake, maybe the experience becomes like, yo, I'm doing this. This is sick. At least have access. Not saying Drake is the guy. I just use him as an example because he
a celebrity.
I was just thinking of who would break. Okay, let's say even Shine. I would think he'd take the profit. But, you know, guys that would value, kind of like the exclusivity because it's a big time offer at the end of the day. So to answer that, I'm taking the cash bounty, whatever that is, whether I auction off in Golden, whether I ride the hype or sell it or make deals privately to leverage that deal to get more out of it, you know, and guarantee kind of like a cash offer up front before anything, right? And Golden would probably be the right kind of like ultimate number 2 to this equation. But at the end of the day, it's amazing. With your question of getting Paul Skenes and MLB players involved, this is exactly what we said was going to be the winner of why Fanatics is going to win, is because they're using organic marketing at its most potent and potential in marketing period, right? In a positive way.
Right.
So you're not like paying these guys to advertise. You're not paying these guys to be an ambassador. They live your marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, like organically, there's no better way in our current infrastructure of social media, digital marketing, communications, branding, and everything entrepreneur. This is the best case scenario for a brand.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And before I say anything else, our next segment is Would You Rather, and you already kind of took the first one, whether you take the offer by Golden. So we'll get to that, but I want you to think of one for me because you stole one of mine.
Okay, I'll do it.
But before we get there, to your point, I think the organic marketing is amazing, and we've already seen it with Paul Skenes. I think he ripped a box of 2024 Topps Chrome Update, and he's like, I know it's funny because there's a lot of memes out there when he was announced NL Rookie of the Year. He's very emotionless. He's not a expressive guy, right? But even during that video where he's ripping wax, he's a pretty even keeled guy, and he says, "Yeah, I know. I've heard about the Pirates organization putting a bounty for my card, but I think this is the one." And he ripped it. He didn't get it, right? But it's kind of cool to see him ripping wax and kind of like adding to the whole this organic marketing, as you were mentioning, right? And like he was on ESPN when he won Rookie of the Year, and then even the sports reporters and anchors are talking to him about sports, but at the same time they also asked him about, hey, we heard about this bounty. You know what I mean? So this is what I mean by ESPN crossing over to mainstream culture, like other sports culture, not just within the hobby exclusively.
For sure,
right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it goes hand in hand with their business model. With they have apparel, they have sports betting, and then they have the culture of sports, and then now sports trading cards that are becoming a separate marketplace on its own, right?
And it's what, for them it's low hanging fruit. Like, who else to really target first for sports cards than sports fans?
And I feel like to add to this equation, if you think about where would you say the most popular, at the end of the day, most popular set to collect or brand would you say is the most valuable based on baseball? What would you say?
Topps.
Topps Rookie? Or would you say, like, for me, it's the Bowman First brand still.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Over like a Topps Rookie. Although I feel like Topps Chrome Rookie autographs are becoming more important in the game. They're undervalued, I would say, and Bowman Chrome was overvalued, and you kind of see the merging of the two because 5 years ago, nobody wants a Topps Chrome Rookie autograph. You're going after the Bowman Chrome. You're in that boat too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And now your collecting is starting to change a bit, but the strong brand of First Bowman, I think in this marketplace, because think, you're a 16-year-old kid. What's the coolest thing other than signing a professional contract in your age would you experience? I guarantee you it's signing your own First Bowman cards. You think at 16, 17 years old that you're someone relevant at the time. So now they have a breed of people that are living this at a really early age, like buying into Bowman First, and then they look at someone like Jason Dominguez. What? My first Bowman sold for $474,000? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So they're the new culture where, let's just take a Barry Bonds, for instance. You wouldn't have that experience. So you don't have a marriage to create more content around ripping packs or, doing all these things because you really didn't experience that other than the wax era. But now guys like Paul Skenes, I guarantee you during, let's just say the COVID era or the peak of the hobby, Paul Skenes was probably 17, 18 years old or whatever he was. He was like, whoa, sports cards is a thing. He sees it. Now he's signing his own sports card. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think these younger players are part of that culture now, growing up where they're experiencing. So they have way more belief in Topps and Fanatics. And this is why it's so easy for a brand like Fanatics to snatch up all these guys and use it as organic marketing because they're buying into the whole concept of first chromes because they're seeing it from a marketplace standpoint, right?
Yeah, excellent point. And I was going to mention something about this later, but I'll mention it now because it's a perfect segue to it. But on a previous pod, we talked about how more MLB players seem to be getting in on the action within the hobby. And the latest one I heard was Josh Hyung. I believe it was Josh Hyung. He traded one of his bats for a dual autograph card of himself with his brother Jace, which is pretty cool.
Amazing. And that's like another, I wouldn't even say manufactured because it's genuine. It's a genuine bounty or a genuine incentive.
Yes.
Other than what Topps is manufacturing, right?
Yep.
So it would be like, wow, you hit a 1-of-1 Josh Hyung where it might not be worth a lot of money, like hundreds of thousands of dollars on the marketplace, but maybe Josh will buy that or trade something that is totally, priceless to you if you're a Texas Rangers fan or if you're just a collector of Josh Hyung in general, right? So I think having MLB players like that brings a whole dimension to collecting, something that we as a kid could only dream of.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Our whole thing of collecting would be, man, if I pulled a card and then I got to go to a baseball game and get this signed.
Yes.
That would be the ultimate, you know what I mean?
No, for sure. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's still about experience, right?
Yeah.
For the collector, if you pulled a 1-of-1, and I'm thinking about another Texas Ranger, Evan Carter, and I just saw this on Twitter right before we started recording, but I think he pulled a 1-of-1 Evan Carter and he DM'd him on Instagram. And, a lot of these guys are on social media too, which wasn't the case when we were growing up.
You can't
right?
connect with them. Yeah. You got to send a letter and wait 2 weeks. Did this bastard get it or not?
Yeah. You don't know if they'll respond at all or if it's just like some executive, for the baseball team. But anyway, he DM'd Evan Carter and Evan Carter apparently DM'd him back. They made a deal. He sent a signed bat, and he signed a 2024 Topps Chrome autograph rookie card. He gave that back, and then they made a trade. And then the guy who sent it was saying, "Oh, this was the best experience I've ever had." You know what I mean? Like for him, he has a story to tell. He's like, "Oh, I actually got to DM Evan Carter." Think about how many people he's telling that to.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Like his friends.
And I think it helps in multiple ways, not only Fanatics is capitalizing on this. I think from a personal brand, people start liking guys like Evan Carter, Josh Hyung, and Bobby Witt Jr., guys who are doing stuff outside of, this guy's a typical MLB player. He doesn't show face. It's just a celebrity, so he's inaccessible, right? That's the viewpoint of how we view celebrities. But to be able to interact is a dream come true for some people. You know what I mean? Sure. So it helps the branding of the team itself. Yeah. The fan base, from a fan perspective, personal branding. Like if I'm an MLB player, this should be a strategy that I'm using and I'm enjoying because
1,000%.
It's like it's giving you free marketing, which gives you more leverage to even your deals that you're doing with your agents, maybe brand deals that you're doing with other companies. It opens a whole different, segment, and it's free marketing from Fanatics. Fanatics is going to personally market you for free and partner up with you. To me, it's a win-win-win situation for everybody involved and the holistic growth of baseball too. Because kids are seeing this. They're going to fall in love with baseball. It's exactly what we want. In order for baseball to grow as a sport holistically, you might not agree with this because, people in charge of baseball makes it a bad experience in general. But I think the whole idea is the more kids love baseball, they're going to be a baseball lifer, just like us. We love baseball because we love baseball as a kid.
Yes.
If we didn't grow up in the era of the Jays and, we grew up, doing something totally different, we probably wouldn't be here talking about baseball. We might be hockey collectors.
Yeah, true. Well, the jump from sports cars to sports is an obvious one to me, and I think there's a stronger connection as we're just talking about all the different players and how that's crossing over. But I want to take one more step further out and just how it's going even deeper into mainstream culture beyond sports. And, I want to bring up other instances of the hobby making it in the news outside of the normal hobby channels. Like, for instance, I don't know if you saw Patrick Bet-David, who's an entrepreneur. I believe he's a part owner of the Yankees. He was on the Iced Coffee Hour podcast, which isn't a sports podcast. It's just like it's a more of a business or entrepreneur kind of podcast. And on that one episode I was watching, PBD, he was talking about a $19 million offer he made for the iconic 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle PSA 10 baseball card to one of the three owners who own it, because there's only three in existence. And his offer was declined. His $19 million offer was declined. But it was cool hearing this story because, you just know that more people outside of the hobby are listening to him, and they're probably incredulous. They're like, what? $19 million for a baseball card? It's just another way to reach people outside of the hobby.
Patrick Bet-David won. I love that guy. I think he is such a great ambassador for life in general. I think he's a voice that stands out, and rightfully so. You have a guy that's built an empire in both media, business, and different sectors. And then you have someone that has enormous amounts of integrity talking about in front of millions and millions of people. And not to dog the hosts of the podcast, but these guys had no clue. And that's why it's like, Patrick Bet-David, come onto our podcast and we will talk sports cards. I would love to talk about the $19 million offer and how that all transpired. Right. But I think you lowballed that. I would have said you need at least 30 for that. So, and that's even on the lower end now. But it's crazy that you said that. I see a lot more people that have a lot of respect in their respective fields that gravitate towards trading cards and collectibles, and they value stuff where they have all the money in the world, but they still value sports cards. Yeah. And I think it's a tie into how important sports is in our culture, right? And where we as a society put sports in general. Not saying that it's all good, because obviously there's a lot of bad that comes out of everything, but in general, I think it's a win-win situation with guys like Patrick Bet-David, even guys like Gary Vee. I know Gary's not, everybody's cup of tea, but at the end of the day, these guys have enormous amounts of influence. And if they're positively influencing them outside of life. So we're talking, they're doing this on a daily basis. They're not selling the card market. They're not going out there saying, the card market is the greatest thing. The hobby is the greatest thing. They're going out there, changing people's lives in the way they know how to. But then they're also talking about how much they love cards. And to me, when you have that much credibility and that much pull in front of millions of people, it's only going to help this hobby, because people do love sports, and it gives them a segue of, hey, I do enjoy sports. Maybe it's time to invest in this rookie card. And one by one, people buy into it. This is how we kind of got back into the hobby. It's like, we love sports much. And other people do like sports fantasy, right? So right. It's just a way of, okay, instead of sports fantasy, how can I do this almost every day where I could have a tangible feel? I don't have to wait till the end of the season to see how I did and invest all this time and energy to, win a pool of $350 at the end of the, or whatever it is,
I mean, like, at the end of the day too, it doesn't have to be either or. It could be both and, like
right,
myself.
Exactly. Well, I stopped fantasy more after sports cards. I'll be honest.
Yeah, no, that's,
it just doesn't take, it takes so much time and effort. I'd rather put that towards sports cards, right?
Legit. Totally legit. Yeah. And I want to go back to your point about the podcast host of Iced Coffee Hour not knowing much, but to be fair, Joe Rogan, he didn't know anything about him. Patrick Bet-David also had to educate Rogan as well.
Very true. Very true.
So, but it's cool because they're like, oh, to your point, they're like, maybe I'll dabble into sports cards. I'll see what this is about. And then they,
who's the host? Who's the guy? One of the hosts that's well known on social media. He's the shorter guy.
Right, Graham.
Graham. Yeah, Graham. Yeah, we need to get him on sports cards.
Yeah. I think he would be a good guy to start to tell others about sports cards too once he's into it. I'm going to just name some other names. Dana White, he's ripping a lot of UFC cards lately, and he's in the news. So, for the UFC crowd, I'm sure that's a crowd that he's reaching out to. Who else? There's Emma Roberts. I don't know if you know Emma Roberts, the actress, but she was ripping a pack of Bowman Chrome with her fiance, and she hit a Dylan Cruz
amazing
Gladiators insert card, number to 150.
Oh, I did see that, yes.
And then I think her fiance knocked it out of her hand by accident.
But that's all it takes. It's that one pull. I swear it's the hobby god where they let you hit one big pull, and then you think that you're going to hit, and then you're hooked.
It's a drug.
That's
the drug.
That's the negative side of coming into the hobby. So just if you're new and you hit something, it's very rare that you do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's all it takes though, right? That's all it takes.
It's all it takes.
But no, I love seeing that because it's just a further sign of things progressing in the hobby. Because if you want to we always joke about the 10x phrase, 10x the hobby. But in essence, you need people outside of the hobby to come into the hobby to grow, this industry, right?
And to further that point, it's reiterating the people I think is so important, at least to me, because if it was people that I didn't like, for instance, sometimes we worship these celebrities so much, but sometimes it's why? And they don't really bring any intrinsic value if they're not genuine. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But these guys are genuine. These guys are choosing to be part of the hobby. So for me, that's what I like. Guys like Dana White, guys like Patrick Bet-David. These guys are, like I said, people with integrity that's built already, that is coming into the hobby because they also see or they're participating in it, right? So for me, that's the most important. It's not some D-bags that you're just oh, this guy's ruining it for me, right?
Right.
It's character after character that me personally, maybe some people are oh, these guys are D-bags or whatever. It's I don't think so. I think these guys are healthy. These guys are really good for the hobby, as well as I respect them from outside of the hobby perspective. So that's what I like most about what the guys you've brought up, even the podcast hosts. Graham, I think he does a wonderful job in his own niche. I don't agree with a lot of the things that he preaches, but that's fine because at the end of the day, he has an impact in a positive way in his community. And how could you hate on that?
Yeah, 100%. And last thing I'll say for this segment is that, how I know it's genuine? These guys and girls that are coming into the hobby that aren't part of the hobby, and then when you see them open packs and the reaction, how I know it's genuine? Because let's face it, sports cards it's not the cool thing to do. So if you're gonna be excited about it, we had there's a stigma from people outside the hobby that sports cards is a nerdy thing. I know this because my wife says, oh, just half jokingly, oh, okay, nerd,
you guys are nerds. Rightfully slow.
Yeah, if you're excited about it and you're, that's how I know it's genuine. It's not oh, you're collecting Supremes or cool sneakers and you want to have clout. You know what I mean? So,
but now it's cool. I kind of feel
it's getting cooler. I'm telling you,
it's already gotten cool, but then it's now over cool that it's nerdy again.
Oh man, that's true. Okay. Anyway, great to see, and I hope it continues. This trend continues. It's amazing. All right, let's go to our next segment. It's called Would You Rather? And like I teased just before this, you stole one of my Would You Rathers. If you would take the Pirates bounty offer, or would you auction it?
We didn't get your answer though.
I would auction it too, for sure.
Why?
I mean, it's more practically speaking, right? I can't go to the 30 years unless I lived in Pittsburgh or I somehow could manage those season tickets.
Now, would you ever move to Pittsburgh if you had just say nothing in life? You're just you hit this bounty and you're you know what?
Right.
I'm moving cities.
Man, if I was early 20s, just starting life out of school.
You'd be 55, 54 by the time those tickets expire. And you get to watch Paul Skenes and be boys with Paul Skenes.
You know what? I might. If nothing else in my life was going on, yes. That's a good incentive to go to Pittsburgh, that's for sure. Right. But yeah, I would auction it off because, unless I could somehow find someone that could like sell those season's tickets every day.
Right. It's a lot of work.
Just to manage it. Like, I don't even like the idea of buying property and renting it out, being a landlord. Right. I don't even like that. So I'm not going to do that for 30 years of Pirates tickets. But it's, I would cash it out for sure. Okay, so I have two more. And then you think if you have one at the end, you can ask me. If you don't, no problem. But second one, I didn't bring this up earlier, but Topps just released photos of Shohei Ohtani signing the 3 big hits, that Logo Man card, the batting gloves relic card, when he hit that 50-50 mark, which I believe will be in the Topps 50-50 limited set that sold earlier in the fall. I have one coming to me. So question is, would you rather have more of those special sets focused on a single player like Shohei or like any stud player with a chance to get these really big hits? So let's say they release it once a month or so. Or would you rather have this constant stream of Topps Now cards like we have currently with a chance of hitting those randomly inserted one-of-one autograph cards or short prints?
So you have to pick one or the other?
For this, yes, for this segment.
One,
both is...
I will say I believe that both complement each other.
Yes.
Yeah. So agreed. I will just putting that disclaimer out there.
Yeah. But would you rather? Yeah.
Would you rather? Okay. Yeah. So we can't be too logical, right? Topps Now or like a set like 50-50 or Wembenyama or like
yes,
kind of like that, right?
Yeah.
Damn, I think they complement each other so well, but I got to say Topps Now. I think there's so much value in Topps Now that we're not seeing yet. And I believe there's so much that someone like Fanatics can do because they're on the ground running when special things happen, regardless, when special sporting events. And as a collector, the true collector will value any collectible that was from that moment. To me, that's one of the highest value as a collector you could see, as opposed to, let's just say, a 1-of-1 or even a out of 5 red where you hit in a break. I get it. It's like crazy. You hit that, but there won't be better instances than if you're a collector and you pull a patch auto from that game of whenever special event happens. So if it's, Shohei's 50-50 season and you caught the home run ball, you see what it sold for. So if you could have something that commemorated that moment and Shohei signed that moment, that is unbelievable. And Topps Now developed the brand that has that. And I think they have so much work and potential off the Topps Now brand that I can't see. I think that's more valuable than a lot of their cards, including their 50-50 sets and even their releases.
Right. I understand that point. To play devil's advocate, you could say a true collector or a true fan of that, whatever athlete that they spotlight would want that limited exclusive set, right?
Right. As a collector. Yeah.
Yes. But at the same time, I think I would go for the Topps Now as well because it just, there are more people that can enjoy it. You know what I mean? And you don't have to pay as much for it, than, versus the exclusive sets. So it's more accessible that way. And so I'm going with the Topps Now card as well.
I just think it's sorry, the other sets are so niche. You know what I mean? I think if you're a collector, you would really appreciate it. But outside of that, I don't see, unless it's the parallels. If you're chasing the parallels. So I think there's a lot of value in the parallels, but like if you're into set collecting, I think that's right up your alley. You'd probably say the 50-50, but I was never a set builder. I used to do set building, but then I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like any sense at all. I could buy the set for cheaper than I build it. So it's like, if I'm going to collect a set, I'd rather just buy it and then collect a set that way. And that's just me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. My only other would you rather is, this is a more fun one. Would you rather get rid of all sticker autos? If you had a magic wand, you're like, you can either get rid of all sticker autos, autograph cards, or you can get rid of all the parallels except for the main ones: red, orange, blue, gold, green, purple. Everything else gone. Easy.
I'd rather get rid of sticker autos.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Because then it would definitely bump up the autos in general. So on-card autos become a scarcity, which I love, because you could manufacture sticker autos, right? So I don't like that portion of the hobby, so I rather take that. Parallels, I love. I can't live without I think parallels is the best thing that has happened to the hobby, to be honest. Like, you look at junk wax, because seriously, then you're look at 30 years ago, 40 years ago, collecting is based on rarity. Rarity is based on grading only. And to me, grading and print run.
Yes.
So how do you counter that problem is you create parallels. And then there's desirable parallels versus undesirable parallels. So you have your true parallels, like your red, orange, your golds, which is huge demands. So refractors, like, those are like the highest demanded parallels. And that, to me, I rather spend my whole hobby collecting that than sticker autos, for sure. Like, I don't own a lot of sticker autos, but like, I own a lot of parallels, I would say, in my general collecting. So I couldn't see it without parallels.
But that's not my would you rather. It's you get rid of all the parallels except those main ones that you're talking about.
Parallel. Oh, okay. I see. I sticker autos still, because I feel like the other parallels bring value to the main parallels.
I see.
You know what I mean? It complements them really well. Like the other, I think you need them, because then the demand for, I believe, the other parallels, it's like there's a lot more, and then maybe the price won't go crazy, astronomical. Like, if you pulled out all the other parallels, then the other parallels would be like astronomical. Yeah. So I feel like there's enough collectors that appreciate the speckles, the lavas, the, whatever, the other non-likable, desirable parallels, I would say.
Okay. No, that's legit. I think you're looking at it more from the macro lens. When I made this question, I'm looking more from a micro lens. If I pulled a sticker auto card versus Aqua,
I see.
I would be more happy with the sticker auto.
Yes.
So for that reason, I'm going the other way. Just get rid of all the unnecessary parallels in the world.
And that's the beauty of it. It's all how you perceive the hobby in your perspective, right? And you're not wrong.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's a valuable lesson. All right. Do you have one for me, or?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
Let's think outside the box now. And because I'm a macro lens thinking, let's play roles of owner/leaders or CEOs. You're a CEO, you're a leader, and you're an owner of now Beckett. We heard the big scandal.
Yes.
Right? Which is, I'm telling you, we've been saying on this podcast, whoever has the money, buy Beckett.
Yeah.
Buy Beckett. If anybody wants to crowdfund and, has deep pockets,
we're in.
Message me. I could create something spectacular. But anyways, would you rather be the owner of Beckett, okay, leading a new company in this hobby, or would you rather be the leader of PSA grading, where your job is to now take it to wherever it needs to go and fix the problems?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I think, if we did a poll, I think it might be close to 50-50. Maybe not, actually. I feel like more people would choose PSA.
I think more people would choose PSA because they don't value Beckett in the way you might, right?
So I choose Beckett because I like the challenge. I like that challenge, and I like that you're not starting completely at zero. There's brand power there still, right? And I feel like it's we talk about it all the time and in previous podcast episodes as well, is that, there's room to tweak and pivot and really make significant gains just by doing small things, to begin with.
Right.
So I like that kind of like almost like, hit the ground running, and you can really make an impact almost right away. And then you could grow it even more. So I feel like Beckett is ripe for that. Whereas PSA is like you're kind of a cog in the machine a little bit, So
hey, you know what? I'm drawing an exact parallel of how a successful investor would do in sports cards, right? Because why would you buy early on a sports cards? Because you see the potential in it rather than are you buying the hype?
Yeah.
Right. So I see the exact parallel because for me, it's a no brainer. It's Beckett all the way. But I know that a lot of people will say PSA because of the brand value of, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's like you bought into the hype. Where are you going to take it from here? What more can you do? As opposed to Beckett, it's a blank canvas. And me, just in my nature as a creator, as someone who loves to use creativity and be able to execute that creativity in a physical sense, especially in the sports card. Like we do this every day with Cards to the Moon. Not saying that this is the most creative podcast. It's the fact that we're able to spit out whatever we think about the hobby is what I like, and wherever it takes us, it allows for that creativity to expand. So it's the same way I see Beckett, where it's like a blank canvas. This would be a dream come true. And this is a sales pitch. Any investors that want to invest in Beckett, come hit us up. Let's take it over.
Ready.
Let's do it. Yeah, so it's going to be a Beckett for me too.
Awesome. That's a good one. But you know what? I could see why people would choose PSA too.
100%.
More security.
100%.
And it's a status thing too at the moment too, right? So
yeah, it's the coolest thing right now. It's like, that's why I made a joke in one, and I think Denny took it the wrong way. But, when he was dressed in like a tuxedo or whatever, he had a white pocket square. And I said, that's where you need to put the PSA 7 slabs that we get from PSA always, right? So he thought I was talking about he was a PSA 7. But yeah, it's cool to have PSA, the brand. It's incredible what they've done, because we even say, like, I have a love-hate with PSA because I think the grading is a whole, I wouldn't say what I want to say, but like it's not as, it's so subjective that we're putting so much emphasis on that, because I inspect a card and I get a grade back, and then I send it back, I get a different grade. To me, that's crazy. But for that to be the fundamentals, and PSA still having its power and brand power is incredible to me, and what they're doing from that standpoint. And then I get a 80% gem rate on my last submission of PSA. I'm like, yo, PSA is the greatest company, So
yeah, we're a slave to PSA. All right. Okay, let's end the show with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. All right, this is when you and I, Hyung, we choose two cards, and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. So do you want to start things off for us?
Sure. I'm gonna just shoot it right off the bat, and then give you explanations after you make your decision. So we're gonna go with a 2011 Bowman Chrome Orange Refractor Auto out of 25. A BGS 9.5 of Paul Goldschmidt. Okay? Sold for $510.
510?
Yeah, $510.
Wow, so cheap.
And then I'm going to pair that up with 2002 Bowman Chrome Draft Refractor numbered to 300. So these were super rare. Refractors were numbered to 300 of Joey Votto, a PSA 9, sold for $850 in September. I would say that price was a little higher than what the value is. I would say it's probably true value, because PSA had it at $475, which I think is low because it's a Pop 39, and last sold for $850 in September. So Joey Votto had a little hype push at the end. I will say this. With that said, Joey Votto is a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And Paul Goldschmidt is on the trajectory. since he's still playing. I'll leave it at that.
Oh man, I there's two things kind of conflicting with me. For me, it's the rarity goes to Goldschmidt, of course, with the orange just being numbered to 25. I think Goldschmidt is highly underrated, and I think he is a Hall of Famer when everything is said and done. And we're going to talk about this in a future show, but you gave me that one chart about people's WAR, active players' WAR, and the average Hall of Famer for each position, and Goldie's right up there. In on terms of the other side, I like Joey Votto as a person. Like he's a character, and I think beyond MLB he'll have a really good career, whatever he decides to do, whether it's broadcasting or he'll be in the spotlight. So I think he'll be relevant even afterwards. Whereas Goldie, I see it, I could see it, he just retires quietly. Maybe he's a family guy, does a side business here and there. So all of that factored in, as a collector, I'm still going with Goldie.
Wow, I thought you were gonna go. You pulled a Johnny there.
No, I just think as an orange refractor too. You know what I mean? Like I never even heard of the refractor number to 300 before.
I would say it's Joey Votto's like most sought after card, but they are like facsimile autos. Like they're not the real autos where like
I see.
On Joey's, and so but then that's more demanding. Like Ichiro had it in his rookie Topps Chrome and Bowman Chrome stuff, and I mean it shows history that those cards are the most desired, I guess, because they were the first Bowman Chromes without the autos. So like I don't
know if many people would know that. That's
you just see it as it's a fake auto, so I would go with the auto versus, but that's 9 years ago. You could use the same clause to back in when on the Topps Tiffany Barry Bonds 86, there was no autos period, but Tiffany was a more rare set, so that was sought after more than, let's just say, a rookie auto that was 10 years later or whatever, right? So it all depends on what you as a collector value, but you're going to go with the Goldie, right?
I'll go with Goldie. Yeah, just the brand for me and the recognition of that card and him being just really underrated. And I think at the end of the day, when he's done too, baseball fans will see the stats and Goldie's stats will be up there. So, yeah.
So Goldie. This is interesting because the reason why I selected these two, and I want to talk about first basemen in general, and you're right, like Goldie is currently in the mix of the average Hall of Fame. If you took the average of the 25 first base Hall of Famers, he's right up there. And out of everybody active in Major League Baseball, there's only three guys, Freddie Freeman, Paul Goldie, and Mookie Betts, that fall into that category of right now, if their career ended, they would probably be at that median marker of WAR for all 25, like in the average of 25 Hall of Famers for that position. Yeah. So Goldie is super underrated. His pricing has been horrendous. There's so much opportunity, in my opinion, even in base autos, they're going for like $100, $200.
Crazy.
I think there's crazy opportunity, but I will say this. Looking at Paul Goldie's kind of stats and where he is in his career, I don't want to say it's his downfall, but these are his last, obviously, couple years. In terms of, if you look at Miggy Cabrera, Albert Pujols was a little earlier, I would say, but finished strong. But you see the tendencies of, even Joey Votto was the case. They hit a certain age and you see the decline in offensive production numbers. So you kind of see, he has 2-3 years left. I think Goldie has like 2-3 seasons of, like this last year was probably one of his worst offensive seasons ever. And to me, that price will sit sideways for a while.
Right.
Whereas Joey Votto's career is kind of like done. And now the talks of like Hall of Famer, the rise of his character now, he has more time to, be himself. So you're seeing a lot more of that. So I think you're going to end up seeing a lot more movement from Joey Votto, whereas Paul Goldie's still not going to get love. Right. And like I said, anytime you want to hear stories of Joey Votto off the air, one day I'm going to tell it on the air. I want to get Joey Votto on this. We have some of the craziest stories in 2005. We were in Amsterdam. We were playing in a world championship. He got even offered in that tournament a professional contract. I want to say it was like $300,000 a year. He was in single A Daytona at the time with the Reds. So he was making hundreds of dollars a month. That's how much we were getting paid at that time. And he was so sure of himself that, you know, he basically politely rejected that. And when we asked him, he goes, I'm going to be making hundreds of millions of dollars. This is when we were 19 years old or 20 years old or whatever we were.
It's confidence, yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, Joey Votto, I have a personal relationship with that guy, or had a good personal relationship. He was one of my closest friends during our time in the minor leagues. So even with that said, I think from an investment standpoint, I think Goldie is the better investment. Mm-hmm. Especially the orange auto. Like, I think for $500, like, this guy's crazy. A Hall of Famer. Like, there's going to be a point in time where people are like, you know what? Goldie was one of the better first basemen in our era. And I'm going to put that, after taking the orange chrome auto, I'm going to take it one step further, where I think a guy like Freddie Freeman, who's actually younger than Goldie and he's at the same amount of WAR, I think Freddie Freeman is almost like peaking in his career. His numbers are better as a mid 30-year-old or early 30s, where it's going on a trajectory where, hey, Freddie Freeman may be at a 75 to 80 WAR when it's all said and done. And to me, that kind of paints the picture of, if Goldie's on the end of the tail and he's going to finish between 65 and 70 WAR in his career, Votto is at a 65 WAR that he's already retired. And then that puts Freddie Freeman at a 75 WAR. I think Freddie Freeman is the best long-term buy out of all three at first basemen, where they're floating at that 65 WAR for the average Hall of Fame 25 first basemen.
You convinced me. I'm going to go Freddie Freeman shopping now. And you know, we talked about Freddie Freeman before. He was always part of that no hobby love list. But I feel like ever since the World Series, there's been a slight bump for sure. I think even on Golden, his superfractor is like at 15,000 right now.
I think
right?
Jeff Wilson helped that with the marketing, because he purchased the Topps Finest superfractor Freddie Freeman, and right before the hype. So I think it got a lot of eyes on it, and then the timing of his World Series heroes. Yeah, I think it played a factor for sure.
For sure. Yeah, and you know what? Inevitably, there's going to be a dip for Freeman, and I think that's a good time to buy. Yeah. All right, good one. I like that. And shout out to Joey Votto. Since retirement, he posts the most random Instagram posts, but they're all hilarious. So shout out to Votto. Follow him there. He's going to do great things. I know it. All right, last my pick one, and final thing for today's show. I did a poll on Instagram, I did a poll on YouTube, and the results have been exactly the same. Okay. And it's pick one of these three. Which Jackson MLB debut patch would you want? Jackson Merrill, Jackson Holiday, or Jackson Chourio? And I'll tell you after, you know, I'm sure you saw the results already on Instagram, but I'll tell the listeners who the voters voted for and if you agree with them or not. So who would you go for, Hyung?
Logic says Jackson Merrill.
Okay.
My gut tells me Jackson Chourio.
Mm-hmm.
My coin flip is Jackson Holiday.
What do you mean by coin flip?
I think Jackson Holiday has a chance to be an absolute superstar. And there's so much hype around him that it could happen. That's a perfect marriage. If Jackson Holiday goes off, then out of the three, he has the highest ceiling. Mm-hmm. Jackson Chourio, I think he's the next Acuna. Mm-hmm. So I think
that's a pretty high ceiling too.
He has high ceiling, but in a different way, I would say. I think Jackson Chourio is going to have to prove himself, whereas Jackson Holiday is going to get more chances, and people still believe in his ability over time. And we might see that maybe when he's 25, 26 years old, where Jackson Chourio, he's 21 years old, and he had just as good of a season as Jackson Merrill. I would say Jackson Merrill just edged him out. It wasn't like, oh, Jackson Merrill blew him. Yeah, you could justify it. Like, Jackson Merrill did extraordinary things, but Jackson Chourio did extraordinary things. And he had such a slow start. Like I said, we talked about this with Juan Soto. I'm talking this about Denzel Clark too, from a personal standpoint. Like, Denzel Clark, if you're into prospecting, he's a late starter, late bloomer. I have a personal relationship with Denzel Clark too. We talk about this where it's like, okay, how do we get him to peak at the right time? I would like to see like Jackson Chourio, get off the gates like really hot. I think his pricing has like my gut. I like my gut pick in Jackson Chourio. I know it's not the fan favorite, but that's my gut. Jackson Chourio is my guy.
Yeah. Your analysis is bang on. In both those polls, number one was Jackson Holiday. Like, people are not giving up on him. People are still believing him. He had that slow start, and overall, his numbers are obviously coming third, under Merrill and Chourio. Jackson Merrill, some people are saying he should have won Rookie of the Year this season.
Right. Justifiable. I think there's a strong argument.
Yeah,
I think Skenes. But I think you could argue both ways. So it's close.
So I mean, my point is that Merrill's doing it now,
right?
Just like Chourio is, right? And he deserves all the kudos for this past season, But surprisingly, so Holiday's one, and number two is Merrill for that reason, and Chourio's kind of overshadowed by those two, So which one would I rather have? I guess it really depends on whether you're paying for it or you're just saying,
I think you have to buy it at market price. I think that would be fair.
So if you're buying it, if someone gifted one of these to you, I would choose Holiday because of the highest ceiling, just to your point, right? But if I had to buy one now for the value, it's 100% Chourio. Like 100%. I think he'll come at the cheapest out of the three.
Right.
And I think he still has the potential to really be worth a lot more at the end of the day. So from that perspective, it's Chourio all the way.
And a thing to say, like all these guys are going to be very interesting because they play on very good teams. So they're the centerpiece of three very good teams. You know what I mean? And obviously, I think Milwaukee gets kind of like the crappier end of the stick because it is Milwaukee and it comes with that territory. But you could say the same thing as Baltimore. Like, Baltimore, I wouldn't say is the same as,
LA or New York.
Yeah, LA or New York. And San Diego too. San Diego is seen as kind of like the lesser of LA, but I think San Diego was the best team in baseball, right? So to me, it's like they build off that. Jackson Merrill could receive a lot of attention at a really young age. And same goes with all three Jacksons at the end of the day. But I think there's an argument for all three. And I think the buy-in value, like you said, it has to be, Jackson Chourio, and then the biggest upside has to be Jackson Holiday, and then the no-brainer is Jackson Merrill. Yeah.
The more boring pick is Jackson Merrill.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
But I don't know if you saw this clip, but I think it was Jackson Holiday, and they're like superimposing with Shohei Ohtani's swing, and Holiday kind of adjusted his swing to look like Ohtani's,
right.
And all of a sudden he's mashing balls. You know what I mean? So I'm telling you,
Holiday. Here's some advice for Jackson Holiday. Just do yourself, man. You're good enough. Figure it out. Don't think you need it. You need Ohtani's way of doing things. You're gonna figure out. Yeah. Like don't. That's how you get into a mess. I'm telling you.
Really, it just seems to be working for Ohtani. So why not emulate?
Oh, Ohtani is Ohtani. Jackson Holiday is Jackson Holiday. Yeah.
All right, that's fair. Okay, well, thanks again for listening to the podcast. And even with our pick ones, if you want to weigh in, please let us know at Instagram, and we'd be happy to read what you guys think, and love hearing back from you guys. All right, we'll have a brand new episode for you on, I believe we have a Friday episode coming out, so talk to you guys soon. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5 Card Guys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at Trade You at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.